What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Tommie.
And we got an album review for you. We are going to go over the new album from Gatecreeper, Deserted. This comes out Friday on Relapse Records. This is their second full length. And yeah, this has been a busy year for these guys because two of the members are also part of Spirit Adrift, which also put out an album this year.
Man, Spirit Adrift is so badass.
So we got a double dose of some badass musicianship once again. So, kicks off with the title track, and holy shit, this thing kicks off heavy as fuck.
You know, it came in fucking just banging. It really kind of reminded me of early 6 Feet Under, I'd say. You know, not everybody's a 6 Feet Under fan, but I personally like them. It just had that feel to it, stoner doomy.
It has a notable groove, and groove is a big theme across this entire album.
Yes.
But it opened up in a very death doomy sense, and of course this guitar tone is so massive,
monstrous.
Again, they love the kind of Swedish buzzsaw tone, very entombed and dismember-ish, but at the same time it's a little bit sludgy too. So there's so much heft to this sound.
Yeah, you know, the drums would really stand out too to me. It had a real punk feel to it, a D beat.
So I love how it transitioned from a very Death Doom song to almost kind of a punk song, except they're still playing that Death Doom riff over this D-beat punk section, which that's another thing cool. I like about these guys is they take bits and pieces from like US death metal, like bands like Obituary, but at the same time they take a lot from the more European bands, or specifically the Swedish bands like Entombed and Dismember, which a lot of their sound came from punk as much as it did metal.
Yeah, you know, at times on this track, the guitars, they really had a death feel to it, like a Leprosy era death feel.
Yeah. And another thing, like throughout this too, the use of lead melody. This is, I think, the thing for me that set this apart from their previous album, which I thought was a great album in itself, but it was more one-dimensional than this one. This one brought in a lot more melody, even parts that kind of sound like melodic death metal. Puncture Wounds, I thought was a really good standout track because that is notably the most punk-ish song on here.
I definitely agree with that.
It's like a thrashy death metal punk song. It's fucking awesome.
You know, it feels like a punk song, plus the fact that it's under 3 minutes long, you know, just has a punk feel to it all around.
Pretty much, that's the song. I was like, listen, let's get this fucking pit spinning and, hurt your best friend. Another standout in here for both of us was Ruthless.
Oh, man, I love that track.
That was one of my favorites on here. Opened up like an Obituary song. It sounded like Obituary, first 3 albums. The vocals, equal parts Chuck, but also a lot of those John Tardy flourishes where he gets a little bit over the top, but we fucking love him for it.
Oh, yeah. You know, it has a very driving melody, driving drums behind the whole thing. It's kind of thrashy a little bit, and really such a full tone on every instrument on that track.
Oh my god, dude. Like, the massiveness of this production is something else. And nothing really bleeds through the other. It's all isolated, but it all comes together just so heavy. Like, this thing is suffocating. And
incredible. Really good job on production.
Oh my god.
Like, very impressive. Oh yeah, another standout track for me was Barbaric Pleasure. The harmonies were so pleasing to the ears.
I love the thrashy gallop on this, and with those harmonies added in, the first thing I thought of was Carcass. And Carcass has always been so good at that. It makes me think of songs like This Mortal Coil on Heartwork, which is one of my favorite. Yeah, that's one of my favorite metal albums across the board is Heartwork. So if you're reminding me of Heartwork, you're doing a damn good job.
I will say the lead work on that track is also, it feels like it fit the song perfectly. I wish it would have come out a little bit more, been a little bit more prominent. It was still done very tastefully.
Now, what I liked, about this, in terms of the lead work, what I did like was it favored more lead melodies over actual solos. You still get a couple solos here and there, but they're spaced out. And I don't know, some parts I think called for solos. Most of the time, I think the lead melodies were really good. They were really creative. They didn't take away from the song. We're like, okay, this is one member showboating. This is the entire band working together here and crafting this very memorable, dynamic moment.
I agree with that.
And it is absolutely loaded across the board with that. Everlasting. Everlasting was one that I particularly loved. I loved the fact that across this album, you get a lot of, chuggy notes, but you also have these giant moments where you let these notes just ring out.
Yes.
And you get this full sense of the sound. It's so nasty.
I gotta say, the fade out on the track Everlasting was really well done.
It fades out in such a great moment. Like, it has
does.
that opening breakdown. The opening breakdown is heavier than hell. And then they bookend this opening breakdown, but towards the end they add that lead melody on top, and it just becomes that much more heavy and in depth and just awesome. Yes. There was definitely a thing for me on this album that I thought the songs on this album were more memorable than their first album, just because I think they made a strong note to make them more melodic and really made these songs stand out individually because of these melodies or a different style here and there, like favoring death doom on one track or old school death metal on another, or even punk on another.
Yes.
Really, really creative songwriting. The song From the Ashes, for example, actually favors maybe a little bit more melodic death metal. There were definitely some moments that remind me of Amon Amarth or later Bolt Thrower. Very anthemic, chuggy driving, but a nice melody on top that was very distinct.
One thing that was really stand out to me about this album is that every track, every time we would go into a different track, it felt like it had a completely different feel to it. There would be one track that, again, as you said, it's like melodic death metal here to punk here to straight up death metal here. Like, I really like that there's a clear difference between every track. It makes it feel like it's not bleeding into each other.
Yeah. And that definitely shows up the songwriting on this. Like, they really wanted to craft some solid individual songs on here that would stand out, and they did a great job. Another particular favorite of mine that I think caps off the album so beautifully is the last track, Absence of Light. This is a flat-out amazing death doom song. Like,
it was epic.
Oh, it was extraordinarily epic, man. Those guitar harmonies were sick. It really harked back to like Candlemass in their earlier years, where they were just writing hit after hit, in my opinion. Or even Hooded Menace, which currently I think is one of the best death doom bands out there. Beautiful. Like, and it shifted between like that and like the track before it, In Chains, was hyper aggressive, chuggy, in your face. This one was more somber and dirge-like.
Man, I love that track, In Chains. It just felt, it was so aggressive and heavy. It was
the chug.
Fucking
the
awesome.
Power of that chug. This album is varied across the board in terms of the songwriting, in terms of the styles, and for me, this one really showed a lot of musical growth between their albums. These guys have grown as musicians and are definitely showing off a lot more depth in terms of, what they listen to, what their influences are, and what they like to incorporate in their music now.
All right, so for me, I'm giving this album a 4 out of 5. I almost gave it a 4.5, which is pretty close to perfect. I like that there was a clear difference between the songs. Great riffs on every track. Like, the guitar work was phenomenal. The bass was in the right spots the whole time. The vocals sounded really good on every track. I really liked that the vocals didn't feel one note. It would go from shrieking to barking to death growl. It was really cool, very well done. And sometimes that feels like it can get pretty one note to me, but I did not get that feeling whatsoever from this. I could have used a little bit more forward lead guitar. Sometimes, I'm not saying a lot, and there was lead guitar, but every now and then I just like that scorching lead in my face, Too much is too much, of course, but I need a little bit.
I'm going to give it 4.5. I think this is an incredible album from start to finish. My only issues were pacing. I think some of the faster moments could have been sprinkled in there a little bit more. Some of the songs kind of favor that more straightforward, kind of slower, groovy death metal, which I love, but I kind of needed some faster moments sprinkled in there. I loved all the lead melodies. Maybe a solo or two more might have helped for me. I don't know, it probably would have depended on the solo and where they put it. A lot of the areas where they had leads in there were already really well done already, so I can't imagine that much more to it. Love the vocals. Chase has an awesome death bark. There's a bit of hardcore punk to it too, in terms of his like intense delivery, and I like the fact that he showed some growth too, showed more range. But all in all, this is definitely a great example of growth in a band in terms of musical maturity.
Oh, yeah.
And this is one of my favorite albums this year for sure. So if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe, because we do shit like this all the time. Catch you guys later.
Peace.